Thank you so much for coming along. So this is the Importance of Policy panel, and I thought I'd begin with a little bit about myself firstly. So I'm the coordinator for the Effective Altruism chapter here in Perth. I work as an environmental scientist, and I've also worked as a researcher for an international animal non-profit, and I've been a candidate with Animal Justice Party in previous elections. Introducing our panellists, we have Katrina Love. Katrina Love is the National Vice President and the WA State Convenor for the Animal Justice Party. She was the lead Senate candidate in WA for the 2013 federal election, 2014 Senate re-election, 2016 federal election and 2019 federal election, and ran for the Legislative Council in South Metro Region in the 2017 WA state election, plus ran for the federal by-elections in Canning in 2015 and Fremantle in 2018, winning 5.21% of the vote, a record for AJP nationally for a federal lower house seat. She is also a director of the newly formed Animal Justice Foundation, a financial investment foundation formed to provide financial power into the future for the animal rights movement. Katrina is also the campaign manager for the Fremantle community organisation Stop Live Exports, has been involved in that campaign for 14 years, and is an active animal advocate, activist and ethical vegan of 12 years. Welcome, Katrina.
Thanks, Courtney.
We've got Michael Anagno in the middle here. Michael has worked as a data analyst, university governance advisor and performing musician. He is currently the Deputy Convenor for the Animal Justice Party WA and ran as the North Metropolitan Region AJP candidate in 2021. He has an honours degree in psychology and is passionate about promoting ethics, science and rationality. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
And Emma Ray, M, is a law graduate with a passion for animal and environmental law. M was the Animal Justice Party candidate for the Mining and Pastoral Region in the 2021 WA state election, as well as a committee member and state delegate for the party. Welcome, M. So firstly, I'd like to hear about each of you and your journey into politics, starting with Katrina.
Sure, I was never that interested in politics. I really had a complete disinterest in politics, but I was asked back in 2012 if I knew anyone who might be interested in running for the Senate in the federal state election in 2013. So I asked around, trying to find other people, and I ended up getting talked into it myself, so I did run for the Senate. I found someone to run as my second, my friend Alicia, who's since become the state secretary. And we pretty much took a crash course in politics. And it was a very steep learning curve, but it was very evident to me back in 2013 that the quickest way to get the changes made that we need made to give animals justice and rights and recognition of sentience, all of that is going to be done at a legislative level. So everything I've done in my animal activism and animal advocacy and my vegan advocacy, I've kind of channeled that into politics because I really do think it's the most effective way to make change in the fastest possible way. And we've proved that by the changes that Andy's made in Victoria for animals and that Emma and Mark have made for, to a lesser degree in New South Wales because they're up against a more hostile government, but we definitely are seeing changes being made.
Michael?
Okay, so similar to Katrina, I didn't really have an interest in politics personally originally, but then I found out about the Animal Justice Party a number of years ago and just didn't realise, there's a minor party here, but it's speaking to me in terms of what they stand for, and I looked a bit more into it and realised that political change can be very effective for achieving real results and through legislation and being at the point of when laws are basically made or considered or changed. So I started volunteering with the party and just over some time became more understanding of AJP and some of the details and how the party worked and how politics worked. and eventually joined the State Committee, and one thing led to another, and then I became a candidate for the last state election, which was a dive into a really fascinating process to see how politics really works behind the scenes and campaigning and all of that. But yeah, basically the drive was to achieve change. There was always the social side of things, as in talking to people, educating them on discussing vegan issues, animal rights, but then I thought, oh, you know, politics actually can lead to change. And so, yeah, I wanted to contribute to that in some way, and that's why I'm here.
Great. Em?
I am Em, so I'm a law graduate. So during my studies, I thought being a lawyer would probably be the best way to represent animals in the legal world. And then seeing cases, I realised that they don't actually have much protection under the law. So during the cases I saw the AJP doing what they do best and realised, no, I want to be on that side of the law. I want to help animals on the other side, not representing them, but making laws for them. So I joined as a normal member, finished my degree, and then became a state delegate and a committee member, and then recently a candidate for the mining and pastoral region. And here I am today.
Great. So, many vegans and animal activists are involved in outreach such as leafleting or promoting vegan alternatives, but many have yet to become politically active. Why do you think this is the case? Anyone like to start?
Well, I was going to say that I think for many there's no glamour to politics. Most people find politics very boring, and most politicians very boring, but I would highly suggest keeping an eye on Emma Hurst's page and Andy Medic's page. I think it's also scary for many people, or they think because, particularly with the Animal Justice Party, we're a minor party, we can't really make many changes. So I think we really have to keep advertising what we've already done, what our achievements are, how fast they've happened. You know, stuff has happened in Victoria within a 2-year period. Immense changes. There's a list, you know, a page long of the stuff that Andy has got done in Victoria for animals. But I think most people are just reticent about getting involved with politics because they see it as boring. It's for middle-aged men in suits, and it's all about people and sitting in stuffy chambers in Parliament House, and really not as glamorous or as exciting perhaps as you know, animal activism out on the streets or in you know, intensive facilities and slaughterhouses exposing that side of it. But I think we definitely need all aspects.
Just to add to that as well, I think a lack of understanding perhaps of how politics really works and how you can make change, I think is part of the issue, because people vote for a candidate or a party, they, as opposed to demonstrating, going to a protest, being an activist on the street, you're involved directly, you feel that you're doing something actively, whereas voting for a political party, you're just perhaps putting a 1 in a box and hoping that that will do something. So I think making that connection to results that we have achieved over in Victoria and New South Wales is very important, so people can see, oh, this political party, we have a candidate from AJP, they've actually been able to put through a bill that achieves some aim to protecting wombats or to including animals in consideration for domestic violence. So those are like some examples of things that happened because we had a candidate in Parliament putting up bills, talking to other politicians, that behind the scenes stuff that most people I think don't fully grasp what's going on because it's over in Parliament House, it's hidden away. So part of that not being very glamorous is also not understanding how it actually, your vote can make a difference, your membership makes a difference, and yeah, I think it's definitely a combination of all those factors.
Most definitely.
I agree, and I also think you have vegans that are obviously not animal activists, and you have morals and ethics on the other when it comes to vegan, animal activists, and politics. So I think a lot of them are out there just promoting veganism and don't realise that, you know, there's politics as well, that we can help the animals in a way.
For sure. So, change for animals via policy is sometimes criticised as being welfarist or incremental. rather than abolitionist, so calling for a complete ban straight away. What role do incremental policies play in animal protection, and what is your response to these types of criticisms?
Okay.
Michael?
So, yes, we are an animal rights party, so we do support the concept of abolishing exploitation and cruelty to animals and the industries that do that, exploit the animals. But in terms of how we get to that point, we do recognise that in politics, it's a very long jump to sort of go from, like if we take animal agriculture as an example, and you could do this with certain other industries such as greyhound racing, horse racing, but even they have public opposition, but they still happen. There are lots of lobby groups, there's lots of people who support them for whatever reason, especially animal agriculture. So if we go with that one, today's Perth Vegan Expo Day, so to get a society where the majority of people eat meat, they eat dairy, they eat eggs, they consume animals in some form or another, to go from that status quo to pure abolition, it's a very difficult journey, and through politics, it's just not practical to go into Parliament. If you get someone elected and then say, right, I want to put up a bill to end factory farming, I want to end dairy farming, like it's a very big leap from the status quo to pure abolition. And practically it just wouldn't pass. So you couldn't get the support of the politicians who, by the most part, represent the majority, because probably the majority of them eat meat, the majority of them have this cultural ingrained knowledge, they believe, what the way things are done. So incrementalism would be not focusing on welfare and saying that's our main aim, but it's saying, okay, we understand to get to abolition, we need to take certain steps along the way. Let's go with the things that are more likely to be achieved. So if we take live animal export, for example, even meat eaters often will agree that that's awful, and they'll say, oh, I wish that didn't happen. And so that's something that we would hope, it's been in the works for a very long time, but we'd hope that that's an example of something that can end ahead of farming animals altogether. That's like big picture, but occasionally in politics you need to take steps to get to that end eventually.
Yeah, I can see where the criticisms come from with incremental changes. It's obviously a single issue. It's banning live export, like Michael mentioned. It's ending greyhound racing. They're very individual, whereas people just want to abolish animal use, period. We would love that, and like Michael said, it's just not practical. It'd be a complete social change. But at the end of the day, both incremental abolition, they're both aiming to diminish the use of animals. So.
And I guess I would just say that there are the two issues, being a political party that stands for animal rights. One thing is that we're useless if we don't get elected, so we need the support of the general public to help get us elected, and we're not going to get that if we're the vegan party. We've all got to close down all slaughterhouses, and everyone's got to stop eating animals, and everyone's got to stop eating dairy, and we've got to stop all forms of racing, recreational fishing. There are enough people out there already who think we're a bunch of crackpot vegans and will never vote for us. But there are a lot of people out there who love dogs and love horses and love cats and eat cows and eat sheep and eat ducks and chickens, who vote for us because we oppose live export or greyhound racing or horse whipping, or so they see us as not too extreme. They'll vote for us because they love animals. So we need to get them on side to get elected, and then when we're in Parliament, there's no point putting up bills that we know won't get passed. And if we stand up and table a bill to shut down all slaughterhouses, we'll just get laughed out of Parliament. But if we put up a bill to say, let's make the sale and possession of crushed videos illegal in this state, every parliamentarian will vote for that. Every parliamentarian will vote for something that's obviously cruel to animals, because they want their constituents to see that they care about animals. So that's the incremental things. And every time you get a bill passed, it gets them thinking about the next stage and other animals, and not just the kittens that are crushed, but what about the dogs in puppy farms? Then what about the sheep with no shade? So just having our AJP MPs in Parliament opens up other parliamentarians to seeing our side of the story and thinking more about animals.
Great. So, what do you feel are the strengths and weaknesses of political activism as compared to other types of activism for animals?
Okay, strengths of political activism.
Yeah.
So I would say a strength is what we've been talking about now already, that you can achieve long-lasting change through legislation. So it's basically coming out with something, so banning the crush videos, which is an awful thing that wasn't illegal before, I don't believe. And New South Wales did ever achieve that. It's been achieved to actually put that through, and it's now illegal. So that's an achievement that we've made through the political process, and it was done. I mean, you could have had public outcry and campaigning enough to lobby someone in Parliament already to do that, but it was almost like a bit of a shortcut. We've already got an AJP person there with a team behind them looking into different issues that affect animals, and they've worked on different issues, and sometimes they get hits, sometimes they get misses, but it's once you get a hit, that's law, and it's now, you know, it can be enforced and it can actually lead to bigger things. And as Katrina said before, one thing can lead to another, so it gets people thinking like, oh, these videos have been banned, what about ... some other similar thing that's a little bit different, and it just builds upon itself. So that would be a strength. Do you have any?
I think the weakness again is that it can be seen to be a long-term step to campaign, run in elections, get someone elected, be on the crossbench, maybe be in a position where you hold the balance of power, or you're one MP who gets to influence the ruling government's legislation, amend their bills, propose your own bills. If you're in a crossbench, on a majority government, then you're really pushing shit uphill. So that's a negative, but again, you have to say, if you're out on the streets protesting, lobbying others, trying to get other politicians who don't have animal rights at the forefront of their mind, that can take even longer. And the other thing is that rather than lobbying the powers that be, we become the powers that be by getting more MPs elected to Parliament, because at any stage, any state government can outlaw animal activism or street protests or farm trespass or all the ag-gag laws that they're trying to get in America. So we want to be in those parliaments to be the voice of reason and stop people also pushing through the negative laws.
What lessons do you think we can learn from other social movements, such as the British anti-slavery movement?
Things that we could learn, I guess with the British anti-slavery movement, it was highly petitioned. There was hundreds of thousands of people that pushed and pressured Parliament, MPs in Parliament, to push the legislation to make it to end slavery. Of course, we can do that as well. We can get hundreds of thousands of petitions. If we have an MP, get people, and we can make changes for animals instead of slavery.
Different kind of slavery, I guess, and with slavery, with women's rights, it all eventually came down to legislation, to acts of Parliament that changed the social practices or the social laws or the status quo. So it wasn't the people lobbying on the streets and the people protesting and people bombing MPs' houses or the street activism that got it changed. It was that got the attention of parliamentarians, that got them on side. They sympathised with the movement, and then they put forward the bill. So everything, I guess that's the crux of it, is everything is political.
Yeah, and so if you're ready, as you touched on before, if we have an AJP or multiple AJP people, members of Parliament, you've already got that heads up. So those movements required the public to convince, or groups to convince sitting politicians that this is an issue they need to consider. And they did make real change through the political process. But if you've already got people in Parliament with that in the forefront of their mind, animal rights, animal protection, that gives you that extra step forward to do that. And also to mobilise people, having candidates elected, having members of parliament, you get more media exposure, you have more funding, you have an ability to get a message out, so you can get thousands or tens, or in an amazing world, you could get 100,000 people protesting something. If your members of parliament are active in their community and they have a great media presence, and inspiring people is important. So in social movements, I was thinking in terms of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa with Nelson Mandela and the Black Civil Rights movement in America. You often found charismatic leaders who were able to inspire the public and also then politicians after that. Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King Jr. So I think in addition to being a political party with strategies and policies and campaigns, you do also need individuals who can mobilise people and sort of energise the voting public and the membership so that you can get that a wave of support and get people elected.
Great, so for anyone listening to the panel today, either in the audience or online, what are one or two things they could help to do to improve the situation of animals?
Join the Animal Justice Party, stop eating animals and the products that come from them. And also, you know, we're not elected everywhere, so in your electorate at both the state level and at a local level and at a federal level, so your federal MP and 12 senators in this state, if there are issues that come up, phone them, write them, make appointments with them, because, you know, we don't think we're going to get an MP elected this state election, so we have to rely on probably the one Greens MLC that's elected and the Labor MLCs and the Labor MPs. But make it political, because no laws change without going through Parliament.
And definitely as well, spread the word about AJP. So one thing you can do to help is talking to friends and family. If politics ever comes up and it's an election looming, or even if you are vegan and your friends and family maybe aren't, somehow talking about the party and raising the awareness that we exist can help, because even meat eaters will often vote for us because they agree with our policies on greyhound racing or live export, for example. So just, again, spreading the word about our party, but also being vegan yourself, or trying as best you can to be helping other people learn about veganism and animal rights issues as well, and being kind at the end of the day. So I think knowing that not everyone's on the same level in their journey, it pays to sort of keep that in mind as you talk to people about touchy issues.
Yeah, just to follow on from Katrina, just get involved, do the polls, do the surveys, do submissions if you've got time, and also learn about the voting system. I think after this election, we realised that people don't actually know exactly how it works, so educate yourselves, spread that, let your family know, your co-workers know, your friends know, give us a chance that way.
Wonderful. And for anyone interested in following your work or getting in touch, where can people find you online?
Our website, just look up Animal Justice Party. We're on Facebook in WA nationally and in every state and territory. We're also on Instagram, but probably most active on Facebook. And follow our elected MPs pages, Andy Medic, Emma Hurst, Mark Pearson. They've got very active Instagram and Facebook accounts, and they keep putting up wins as they get them, so it's quite inspiring to know that we can get people elected, and those people are getting paid a lot of money just to represent animals and the environment in Parliament. And they also have staff. They have vegan animal activist staff, and they're all getting paid good money to do the research and support them, and all that money goes back into the vegan and animal activist community. So it's really getting one MP elected has far-reaching consequences, where people are paid by the taxpayer to represent animals in our parliamentary system and try and change laws to help them.
Great. Do we have any questions from the audience at all? No? Are there any other points that we didn't touch on that you would like to discuss?
Just, I think something that you've alluded to before, Courtney, about all the arms of activism, like how important they all are. We need them all, but I think, ultimately we can raise awareness with street activism and advocacy, things like Anonymous for the Voiceless and protests and leafleting and having conversations with the public. But ultimately, having done all of that over many years, I've just come to the conclusion that we need people to keep doing that while other people focus their attention, other people who are up for the challenge, focus their attention on the political activism, because it doesn't matter how many people you talk to, how many protests you have, how much advocacy you do, how great your social media profile is. It all comes down to changing legislation in Parliament to eliminate the cruelest practices to start with, and ultimately, many years down the track, getting to an abolition of the commodification and exploitation of all animals.
Very true. Thank you so much to our panellists for joining us today and for your time, and thanks everyone for coming along today. And this talk will also be made available online as well for you to share. So thank you very much.